Well, we're ready for section 6. We're almost through. Do section 6 and 7 and we will be ready to put all our quilt together. This first thing we're going to do is This Home Believes. It's just our stitched background, regular embroidery, nothing special. We're going to find it on page 21. I have already hooked my lightweight mesh stabilizer in my 5x7 hook. I have pulled up my Christmas 4x6 vertical design. We want to be sure our stockings hang in the right direction. And then I've layered that on top of that the embroidery design so that all of it is centered in the hook. I am going to go ahead and this is our background fabric that we have with our fusible backing on it. I'm going to go ahead and just embroider this like we're supposed, like normal. This is just regular embroidery. And I will be back when we get through. And we are finished with another block. So I'm going to take this out of the hook and then I'll set up and we'll get started for doing the snowman. We got some different techniques to do on the snowman, so we will go through it step by step. So I'll be right back. Alright, now we're going to move on to our snowman. And it's called a fringe block because parts of the snowman, on his tassels on his hat and on his scarf, are going to look like fringe when we get through. It's kind of a neat process and very simple. I have my hoop with my my lightweight mesh cutaway. I have my background fabric for my snowman and it has the fusible mesh on it. It also tells me to put the fusible mesh on the body of the snowman, which is this little dot. Then we have the hat, which is this red fabric. We also need a hook and loop dot, the 1/2 inch hook and loop dot. We want the soft fuzzy side. The rough side will go on the little bird that will attach to it. So we're going to get going here. We're on page, let me get my page, 32 and 33. We're going to pull up our design, the 6x8 design of the cups. Then we are going to layer our snowman on top of it so that we can do our background quilting. And I will get that part done and get back with you. Okay, I have my background fill done. I have my background quilting done. I have my body of my snowman. It has a fusible backing on it. I've done my outline of my snowman. So I'm going to put this on here and we're going to stitch it down. Then we're going to trim around it. And then we're going to stitch down his hat and trim around that. So I'll come back after I get those two things done. Ain't he cute? Now we're going to stitch the placement line for his hat and then stitch his hat down. And then we'll come back and do some of his eyes and nose. So, be right. Alright, I also went ahead and did the satin outline around the body in my white before I start to change. We are on page 32. We just finished up number 5. We stitched the body satin outline. Next we're going to stitch his eyes, then his nose, and then his stick arm details. So we'll be switching colors for each one of those things. When we come back, that's when we're going to work on the fringe. So I'll get those things stitched and come back and show you what we do. I will tell you that we're going to need a black bobbin thread for our fringe detail. So you can be sure that you have that. Be back in a few minutes. Okay, I have stitched out my snowman. Isn't he cute? We are going to now change our bobbin thread to a black thread. Since all the rest of our bobbin has been white, then we're going to change this to black so that we know that it's different. Eventually we're going to cut this black bobbin thread, and that's why we want it black, is to keep it from, so you'll know the difference in what you're doing. So as soon as we get through with 2 fringe pieces, we will change back to our regular bobbin color. You can also use water-soluble thread. If you choose to do that, read the directions carefully, because you also want to be very sure that you take that out. You can imagine what would happen if you stitched the rest of your snowman with water-soluble. Then when it was washed, everything would disappear. I have changed to my pink thread for my tassels on there, and then I'll go back to the white when I do the scarf. So let's watch it stitch. These are going to be longer threads than our usual ones. And now you're noticing that I haven't done the satin stitch around the hat. The satin stitch around the hat will tack all of these long stitches down and hold it in place, so that when we do cut the back, it will hold it all there on the top for us. Now let's switch to my white. Okay. Now we're going to, it says, after number 10, change bobbin back to regular bobbin thread. Please remember to do that. As you can see, our black threads along in there, those are the ones that we're going to cut after we finish doing the rest of the stitching. We'll do that after we take it out of the hook. Let me get my thread changed back. And we're going to do the red outline stitch for the hat and for the scarf feel. The scarf is not a applique. Get it said in just a second. It's not an applique, it's just a regular embroidery fill that goes on it. So I'm going to put this on. I will get this stitched, and then we will come back. Whoa. And after, well, we can finish stitching out the scarf part through number 14, which would be finish out the hat and the scarf, and then I'll come back. So we have stitched all of our snowman. We're ready to stitch our hook and loop placement line. So let's go ahead and do that. Stick that on there, and we'll stitch our little star over it, I think. I think I'm going to go back a step and do that one. There we go. Didn't cut my thread just right. So I'm going to stop it and then cut it. And so the last thing we stitch is the advent number, and it's the number 17. I'm going to stitch that, and then I will remove the block from the hook and show you how we're going to cut the fringe. Okay, there's our cute little snowman all stitched out. Now let's take care of our fringe. So you can use snips, little bitty snips, or I'm going to use this seam ripper. I'm hoping you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to come under those black threads, and I'm just going to cut just the black threads. And you want to be careful, because you do not want to cut any of these down here, because everything will fall apart. I'm doing just a little at a time. Okay, let's do it on this side. Here I want to be real careful that I don't catch these threads where the red is. I just want to make sure I get the black. That's why I like a seam ripper, because you can really see what you're doing, and a thin one if you have it. Okay, you see how it's all loose back here. Now we're going to turn it over. I'm not going to cut, but I'm going to take the back side and just gently lift those out. And you can take your finger and just kind of make that part come out. Isn't that the cutest thing? Look at that. Look how easy. I'm thinking the finger is the safer thing to do. And it's just coming right out. Those little stitches right there. Looks like I didn't cut that black right there. Look how cute that fringe is. Oh, that's adorable. Okay, let's do the scarf. Seems like it's a little easier to see the black on these. Come on. So much easier. You couldn't tell if you had if you had used the same bobbin color that we've been using all along. You wouldn't know which one was which. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Out that little bit of black there, but look at that scarf. Isn't that cute? And there's our little fringy stuff on all our moving. How cute. Now all we have to do is trim it up and we have this block finished. So we'll move on to the next thing and I'll set that up for you in just a minute. Okay, we're going to move on. We're down to our filler blocks for section 6. Excuse me. We have our felt. We have for each of the stockings. Smaller piece here. We have the cuff. This is the large one. This one is a straight piece. You had to sew these together. We have our flexi foam that goes underneath, and the so I've sewn them all together. That goes on the back of it. And we're just going to follow this outline of wash weight stabilizer. thicker stuff
quilting to do on them.
into my side-by-side
so I'm going to
hoop.
get all my filler blocks, and we're going to do them just like we've done them, all of them, all along. So I'm going to do my filler blocks, and then I will get back with you when I have it all completed and sewn together. Remember,
And
we've
I
already
am
done
going
this
to
one, and we've already done this one.
Get
So
my
we-
little stockings lined up in
yes.
here. I'm going to pull them up on my machine.
We did that at the beginning. So
And
we're going to sew all of these together in
We don't do any background
Order.
quilting.
the way they
So let me get it all pulled up. You're going to find these
over on page
stocking files in the Advent embellishments in your file.
64. It's going to give you the order in which to
So let me
sew
get
these all together
that set
after
up,
you
and
have
then we'll
gotten them
Get this stitching.
background quilted. But I'll come back with the final product when we get through with it. And then we will have only one section to go, plus our borders.
So we have our
And we're going to get
felt
this done
for each
before
of the
December 1st,
stockings.
so you can use
We
it
have the cuff
this year.
that goes at the
And
top.
we will, there's some other things I want us to do if we have time to
that
do
goes
them.
underneath, and the
Alrighty, I will
white
see
felt
you
that goes on the back
in
of it.
just a bit with the final product.
Okay, it did read where it says to iron fusible backing on the wrong side of the cuff fabric. So I have done that. I think we're going to have to do them individually in the hoop. So I have stitched down the flexi foam for the first one. I'm going to trim that around, and then I believe number 14 will be the first one that we pull up. So when you're pulling them up, be sure you don't put 2 14s or 2 8, that you have 3 of them with different dates on them, because those are the dates you're going to hang it up. Alright, I am going to, after I get this cut off, trimmed up, then I stitch the Advent placement line for the backing. The base placement line. It wouldn't be for the backing, it will be for the stocking part. I believe number 14 is the green. So that's what we will be doing. Alright, I will get that trimmed up and be back. Okay, the first thing we do is to stitch our outline, our placement line. For our felt, or for our flexi foam. Got that a little bit close. I'm going to trim a flexi foam. Then we're going to stitch our placement line for our felt and stitch that down. Be right back. Let's do our placement line for our felt, our background piece. check this time to be sure that I'm not too far either way. Come this way a little bit. Okay, now we do our sock placement line. Now here's where you change color if you want, like we're doing the red one right now. If you want the red stitching on it or not. I think I'm going to leave the white on it. Now I'm going to trim this off, and it says trim as you want. So you decide how close you want it to the stitching line and how much you want to be seen on the outside. I'm going to cut it pretty close. So I will be back when I get that trimmed up. Alright, got mine trimmed. I'm going to do my final outline on it. No, excuse me, we're going to do the placement line for our top, our cuff fabric. So let's do that. And if you feel better taping these down, then please go ahead and do it. Now I'm going to trim this up and then go back and do the outline stitch around the edge of this after I've trimmed it. And then I will go ahead and do the number on it, and then I'll come back. Okay, we've finished all the stitching on it. Now what we're going to do is turn it over and put our piece of felt on the back. Tape it down on the edges.
Then we're going to stitch down that final stitch, and then we're done with this one. When you finish stitching, you can take it out of the hook and trim around the outside edge on that very last stitching line. Here are 3 little stockings. They're cute. They're bigger than I thought they would be. So, once you get those through and trimmed out, you can put those aside for when we get through with our quilt. And we're going to also, it's something I think I forgot to add on the list, but we're going to do both of those real quick. It's the embellishments. It is on page 67. It's the dimensional holly leaves and the dimensional wreath leaves. We're going to go ahead and do both of those now. They won't take but a very short time. The holly leaves, I have hooked my water-soluble stabilizer. I have my 3 by 5.5 inch piece of the prickly pear felt, and that's all we do. I put in my green thread, and I wound a little bit of green thread, the same green, on a bobbin. You need to have it the same color on both sides. So let's get those stitched out. I pulled up the leaves on my in the embroidery machine, and everything's ready to go. So stitch out the placement lines, put my felt down, and stitch out the final design in detail. And I don't guess you want to watch these, so I'll come back when I get it finished. That was quick, and that's all there is. Now you'll take it out of here. You will trim 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch around this sleeve. Just make sure it's even going around it. And then you, it says to dip it in water to get your water soluble, to get this stuff to melt off. It says for about 20 seconds to put it in, and then take it out and let it dry. And these will be hand tacked onto our Deck the Halls piece of embroidery. Alright, next we're going to do the dimensional wreath leaves. I have already hooked up my 4x4 frame. Let me change my... Alright, and we're using the same thread with the green thread with the green background on the prickly pear 5x5 piece, or I believe it's 5x5, 5.5 by 5.5 piece of felt. So I am going to do my tack down stitch and put it on there and let it stitch. It's going to stitch the same way as the dimensional holly leaves. Alright, here's our leaves. I have still got to get this out. I've trimmed up the back and all the little strings that were hanging off. I'm going to take this and I'll come in and trim up these and cut these out individually. And you just trim about as far away as I did on the holly, if you can see that. I'm not sure if that's in focus or not. But anyway, I'll sit down probably when I'm in front of the TV and cut those out. So that gets our dimensional leaves and holly pieces that go on our, the little leaves go on our the wreath that we made. Alright, this is all for section 1.
The next time we'll come back and do section 2. We'll do the Advent heart, the Advent tree, the red house, and the filler blocks. See you next time. Alright, here we are ready to do our red house. We're going to do the roof section first. So we have our pieces of fabric. We have our background fabric that we've done our fusible backing on. We have the roof section, which is the pink. We have the window base, which is this 2 by 2.5 inch, and then we have a window pocket, which is 2 by 5 inches. And it calls for the winter applique glitter snow. I think I can get this out of the scrap left over from our last house. We're going to see if that works. If it doesn't, I'll have to cut another piece. So first thing we're going to do, I have hooped my stabilizer in my 5x7 hoop because we're going to do the window pocket first. So, and I'm on page 55. Once we do the pocket, then we will do the embroidery, the background embroidery, and layer on our top house piece, the roof piece, and finish it up that way. But we'll move to a bigger hoop to do these. Let me set up the camera and move it and show you where we're going to find these files on our machine from our stick. So I'll be just back. Okay, hope you can see my screen. My window is putting a glare on it, so I'm holding a piece of paper up so you can see it. Alright, I've gone into my stick. I'm looking at the house blocks, so I'll pull that up. And if you'll look at the description, it's going to say blue and red and tan. So we are looking for the red piece. It was on there a few minutes ago. I'm not sure where it went. Let me find it and I'll be right back. Okay. I think I went back. I somehow had deleted it from my stick. I don't know how I managed to do that, but there it is now. This is the first one, our window for our red house. So I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to set, and I'm going to touch embroidery. Now I have hooked my fabric. In my 4x4, we're going to do, the first thing we do is to fold our long piece, our 2 by 5 inch piece, in half with wrong sides together. Make a little crease there. And now we're going to stitch our window placement line. And I have put in the white thread. Now we're going to take our pocket fabric and place it right side up like this, because this is my right side, aligning this crease with the top of the stitched box, completely covering the bottom of the window pocket outline. So we are going to put it way up here. I want that crease right on that line.
And then I am going to tape this in place. Now let's stitch the tack down line. Now we're going to change our thread to the red for our window mullions. And stitch our window pane detail, and when we get this done we're going to take it out of the hoop, but we don't trim the fabric, we just cut off the excess stabilizer. So do this, and I'll be back when this gets finished stitching. Right, I took it out of the hoop. I trimmed off all the excess. I left, this right here. I did not trim any of my fabric. When you fold it, you want to fold it on that line that you creased, and there's going to be a little extra sticking over, so that when you go down in the pocket, it looks like it lines up correctly. And we're just going to fold that back on itself, and we're going to lay that aside until we're ready to put it on the top half of our roof. So let me get things set up and we will move on to the roof. Okay, when we pull in our designs like we've been doing, our background quilting first and then we put our embroidery design on top, it is telling me to leave it centered. Right now it has a habit, it's centered both ways in this hook. You leave it centered on the top and bottom, but we want to move this over to where that end of that stitching comes to the end of the outside line there. So we're going to do our edit, and we're going to do move. We're just going to click it over. So there it is on that edge. And say OK, and embroider. So now we're going to do I'm going to change to my white thread. We're going to do our tack down for our quilting and do our background quilting, and then we'll come back and do the embroidery on top of this. So I will come back when I have gotten my this with my batting underneath it, and this all quilted and ready to go, just like we've been doing our other blocks. So I'll be right back. Okay, the directions say on your house fabric, your roof fabric, you're supposed to put the fusible stabilizer and on the 2 by 2.5 window piece. So I've gotten those fused on. I have stitched my house outline. So I think now I'm ready to put this in down. Excuse me. And get this stitched on. I'll stitch it down and I'll trim around it and be back. Okay, I've trimmed it out. I've changed to my pink thread, And we're going to do the outline that goes in pink. Then we're going to do the snow placement line and put in our glitter snow. And that goes right up here. And I think I can use this scrap piece of fabric just fine. So, yay. So I'm going to do that and do my snow placement line. I'll come back when I see if when I get all that done. Okay, so I have finished the satin stitch on the pink. We've traced my snow placement line, and it is going to fit. I get to use my scraps here. It's going to be very sure we're good. And I have changed to the white thread. Okay, now I trim it up and do my final stitch on that. So let me go do that and I'll be right back. So if you can see, it slid just a tiny bit on me, but I think when I do my final outline stitch of this, it's going to cover that up and it's going to be fine. So with Kimberbell, always save your tiniest little scraps because you never know when you can use them. So let me go sew that out. I'm going to go ahead and sew the number and the little embellishments that go on each side and on the chimney, and I will be back when that's done. I have stitched all around my snow covered. I've done the white details in it, the number, and I have gone ahead and changed to the red thread, and I've done the top of my chimney. Now we are going to put our window with our little pocket in the top of right in here in between. We are on page 56 on number 10. So we're going to stitch the window placement line, and then we're going to put our base window fabric, which has the fusible backing on it. Sorry. So let's get that stitched out real quick. It won't take but just a second. Now we're going to put our window down, our window base fabric down, tape it in place, and go ahead and stitch this. And then we're going to trim it. I'm going to trim it and I'll be right back. Okay, there's our house, and that's how it sits when we're embroidering it. What we're going to do is put this down, and we're going to line up that little window, the two little marks here and here is where our fold is going to go, and we want that to line up with, I thought I could leave that tape on there. This is our pocket that our little advent will go in. We want the crease, the fold, to go right on those lines, and then we want that mullion to be lined up right there. And I'm going to tape across the top of that. And now we're going to stitch this down. I think I might even put another piece of tape on the bottom of that just to hold all those layers down and together. Okay, so we're going to stitch all that down, then we're going to trim close to our stitching, and then we'll do our final stitch on top. Now the folded fabric is going to be is bigger than what we actually need. So. Okay, so we're going to tear off our tape. Get my fingers on it. There we go. Now we're going to trim around where we just stitched. All of this is going to trim up close to the red that we just stitched down. Even the other part is going to go away. So let me do that and I'll come back and we'll do our final stitching on it. Okay, I've trimmed as close as I can. It's cut our stitches here, but it won't. We're going to go back over and do a satin stitch all the way around there, so that part won't matter. And we'll have our little pocket right there that we can stick something in. So we're going to go ahead and follow first thing we're going to do is place some wash away topping over it, so it will hold all that down while we're doing it. And I'm going to take this down, stitch around it, tear this off, and then we will trim up just the bottom edge of this piece, and then we'll move on to the body of the house. So I'll be right back. Okay, we have finished embroidering our rooftop. I will tell you on this last final stitch here to slow your machine down some. That's a lot of fabric that we're going through. I broke a needle going through some of it, so slow it down and let it go a bit slower. Now we're just going to tear off this topper. And I think that's where my needle broke. So what we're going to do when we take this out of the frame, which we can take it out now, we want the final we're going to trim it along this bottom, along that edge right there, and we want it at 6.5 by 4.5. What do you think this is? 6.5 by 4.5. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and trim this up, and then we're going to start on our red house main block. Get my things out of the way. Pull over all my fabric here. So we have this same background, and when you're orienting it into your hook, be sure that you don't have the bottom half of the house going horizontal and the top half vertical. Make sure you have them going this way so that this part
stitches in the same direction as this part. So we have our background fabric with our fusible backing on it. We have our house fabric, which is the red sheet, and I don't believe we put anything on it. I think we just put it in. We have our windows, which is the 4.5 by 2 inch piece that we'll just lay down and it'll stitch all the windows across. Then we have our the eaves. This must be the part that goes across the very top. So that's this piece which is 1.5 by 6 inches long. Our porch is 3 by 4. It's the pink piece. Then we have 2 doors that are 2 inches by 3 inches. We have one that is 2 inches by 6 inches. That's our door pocket. And our door base is 2 inches by 3 inches. Shapeform is in your embellishment kit. It's the really hard, it's a little bit flexible, but it's pretty stiff and hard. And it needs to be exactly 7/8 of an inch wide by 1 inch and 7/8 long. So you need one of those. So the first thing we're going to do is do our door, the part where the door opens. And I believe that's the pocket too, if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to hoop our wash away stabilizer in our 4x4 hoop, which is this little one, so we can get our door done. Let's see if I have a scrap of this that will work. Nope. Never is a scrap gonna work. It's always too small. So I'm gonna have to get a bigger piece. Remember, this is the thicker piece, not the thin wash away. The topper is a wash away too. It's real confusing, isn't it? The topper is thin, like what we just tore off. But this is the thicker one, and it doesn't just tear off. You do have to wet it to get it to go away. Make sure our hooks are good and tight. And turning it the right way makes it that way. Okay. So we're going to have to go and unload our embroidery files, and we're going to go back and delete everything. I'll pull all that up so that you can see it. So let me get my camera set and I'll be right back. Alright, I pulled up my house blocks again, and we are looking for the red. We've already done this one and this one. So these are the two that we're going to use. But right now we only want the door one. Let's choose it, and let's set, and embroidery. So we're going to just looking at my color placement there.
says to choose a neutral thread. Let's go over to our I think I'm going to put the white thread back on for right now. You could do the tan since we're doing the tan, so let's just do the tan. So we don't have any, if something happens to, a stitch happens to stick out, we won't notice it as much. Alright, so we're going to stitch our door structure placement line. I'll get you a little closer and maybe you can see what we're doing here. There we go. So we take our little piece of shape form and we're going to put it in here, and it's got to cover that inside line for our door, but not go over the outside line. So let's be sure that that's where we want it. I'm going to tape it down. I think we're good to go. Now we stitch this tack down line. Make sure I get all the tape off of here. Alright. It caught it on the top, but just barely. Now it says to stitch the door placement line and place one door fabric right side up. So, we don't trim it this time. So we're going to change our thread to the red. go just right. Stitch the inner door outline and the door knob fill. So let's do that. Now we're going to take it out and we're going to turn it over and put our back fabric on. Tape that down. And it's showing taping on these corners. Now we turn it back to the front of the hoop. And we're going to stitch our door tack down line and hinge lines. I think I might change back to my tan fabric. Because our satin stitch will be the tan. I don't want the red to shine through there. Okay. Alright, now they want you to trim the fabric not between the stitches. Oh, I got you too close, don't I? I'm sorry. We're going to trim from here around back to here, not here on the front and the back. Close to the line, yes. And do that on the front and the back. And I will see if I can show you. I am doing this one-handed. Now we'll continue around. One little thread holding there. I might come back there and try to trim that a little bit closer. Although I don't know that it's totally necessary. Alright, now you leave this piece here, and we're going to do the very same thing on the back. We're going to leave our piece in between our little hinge points, but we're going to cut all the way around there. So I'll be back when I get that done. Okay, I have the front of my door with my extra hinge fabric, and I have the back all trimmed. And now we're going to do our satin stitch around the part that we trimmed. You need to change your bobbin to the same color as your tan thread so that it looks the same on both sides, and do our door satin outline, and then we're going to remove the block from the hoop. So I will do that and be right back. Okay, and there's our door. It kind of was very perforated, so it just kind of tore off along the edges. I peeled these two parts back and cut off the stabilizer really close, and there's our little door. So we're going to move on to the house part, and let me get that all set up, and we will start on page 58, part B. So I'll be back when I get that done. Okay, for the first part of this, I'm going to go ahead and do our background quilting and get that done. And then we're going to come back, and I'm probably going to film every step of this way because it's something that we haven't done before. So I'm going to go ahead and do all my background quilting just like we've been doing on our background fabric. So I will see you back when I get that done. Alright, now we're ready to stitch our placement line for our house fabric. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, and stitch it down, and then we're gonna trim it up. I'll stitch it, and then I'll come back and I'll trim around the edges, and then I'll be right back. Alright, I've done my house fabric. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do our tack down line for our eave, and put down our eaves and trim. We're going to put our windows on, do the tack down line, the windows, and trim around all of our windows, and then we're going to put down our porch. I couldn't think of what they were calling it. Their porch, and we're going to put that. We're going to tack down, stitch it down, and trim around all three of these before we do any other satin stitches. So let's get all of that process done, and I'll come back when all of that is finished. Okay, I have all the things stitched on. We're about ready to start our satin outlines. We're on number 9 on page 58. So we're going to do our house outline. It's going to outline our windows and do the little mullions in our windows. Then we're going to switch to pink, and it's going to do the outline of the door. Then we'll switch to white, which will do the eaves and the little things around the porch. Oh, the eaves are up here. Excuse me. Then I'll do the porch outline, porch eave outline, and then porch roof. So we'll do 9 through 12. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and do through 14, which will do the little details here and the house number. and then we'll come back and do the door that's going to do on the top of this. So I'll be back when I get all of that done. Alright, we should be up here. See if I can get you a little bit closer. We're going to stitch our door placement line. I've changed back to my tan thread. I've gotten all of it stitched in there. So let's do our door placement line. And put our door on there, door fabric. And we don't trim yet. We've folded our 2x6 piece of fabric in half with the fold up here. There's two little placement lines that have been stitched. You might not can see them from there, but we're going to put this up there. So we have our pocket in there, and we're going to stitch this down. Now we trim all around this outside of this door. Let's see, all the fabric. Get my scissors caught up in there. I find if I raise my fabric up, it helps me get closer to my stitches. Let's come down this way. And now we do the decorative outline on that part of the door. Oh, this gets to be really thick, and so you probably want to slow your machine down again. And go in and turn mine down. I'm going to go down to about 400. And let's try that again.
looks like I didn't quite cut close enough. Let's see if I can't find a way to trim that when I get it finished with it. So be sure you trim really close. Now we're going to take our door, part A door that we finished, and we're going to line up this line and this line. Make sure those are perfectly aligned. And tape it in place. See where we tape it. I'm going to get some fresh tape so it'll really hold it down. I was having some needle breakage a while ago, and the thing we put in the door, let's see, I'm trying to get what it's called, shape form, was making my needle break. So we are going to have to make sure you do not sew into that shape flag stuff. It is some kind of tough. Okay, now that we have that taped down, alright, we are supposed to take our pins, take this out of our hook, and our wool mat, and let me find my wool mat, because it's been a little while since we used that one. Don't know where I put it. Let me find all my stuff, and I will turn this around so you can see a little clearer. Okay, we are going to be super careful here, because what the shape flex in here is what we do not want to stitch on. So we are sticking a pin, and I've already done it on this one. I'll do it for you on this one. We're going to go straight through that stitching line there. Let me see if I got you close enough that you can see what I'm doing. Okay. You can see where my stitching line is on that side, on the top side. We're going to turn it over and make sure that our pin, trying to get this in focus so that you can see. Sorry, it's right. Our pin is right here. Right here. I was looking on the wrong side. It is in that stitching line right there. This one is in the stitching line right there. So we're going to turn it back over. And I'm on my mat here. Here we go. Stitching that. I'm sticking those down in my wool mat so they stay straight. And what I'm going to do is lift up and be sure on this side that we are in that stitching line, and we are on there and there. I'm not sure if you can see it or not. I'll get my fat fingers out of the way. So we know that this is in line, and we won't be stitching on that hard part. So we want to make sure we're taped down good so it doesn't go anywhere. And then we are going to matter of fact, I think I'm going to tape a little bit more. I'm going to tape on this side too. I don't want that moving and it looks like it's moving on me. Sure. I'm going to tape down right here, even though it might I just do not want this shifting because I don't want to break any more needles today. I'll tape across here because we're going to satin stitch all along this side. I don't think that's going anywhere. At least I hope it's not. Okay. So I've checked everything. I'm going to take my pins out. Now they say to put it back in your hook. I mean your hook back on your machine. And I'm going to move you, so I think I probably will come right back and instead of making you all dizzy because it's a lot to move the camera. See you in just a second. Okay, now we're going to check our alignment. So we're going to unthread our machine. We are going to leave our foot up. And we are going to put our needle down, except my foot automatically goes down, to be sure that it's going in that right point, and mine does. Let me see if I can take this off and get you a little bit closer. Might have to back up just a little bit. Okay, so you can see where my needle is there. Now I raise my needle and I go forward about to the middle of the door, and I want to be sure that that needle goes directly in that spot, and it does. Now I'm going to raise my needle again. I'm going to go forward to the end of it. I think it went. Oh, I didn't have my needle all the way up. That's why it's fussing at me. Sorry. And we are aligned perfectly right there. I hope you can see that. I can't really tell on the camera. So now what we do is I put my camera back on. And we thread our machine. And we stitch that line. I think it's number 19. The door's realigned. Now we got to go back to the beginning of this line. Oh, I need to thread my machine.
I'm going to go back to the beginning. Good there, so I can drop it and I can stitch that line. Now that everything seems to be going, I can do the last step, which is stitching the satin stitch on this. So let's see how that goes. Whoop. Alright, so we are done. Let's pull it out, untape everything, and see what it looks like. I don't know why this fascinates me. Every time I do it, I finish embroidering, I'm like, oh, I have done something. I think I was supposed to trim that before I did that stitch, and I didn't, so I'm going to have to go back and trim that. But that's our little pocket to put our, oh, you didn't see that. So after we do the straight stitch, before you do the satin stitch, trim this. I'm going to have to go in and do that. So there is our little pocket door. Isn't that cute? So there's the bottom half of our house. I will trim this up to the right size, to the if we move on over to another next page, we're going to put them right sides together up here. We're going to trim this off, sew those together, and then we'll trim up the whole block. So we'll trim this part up here up. I forget I had you zoomed in, so there we go. And there's the rest of our block. So I will be back with you and we will do the filler stitches. So, okay, we're down to our filler blocks for section 6. We have our big piece. We have the smaller piece here. This is the large one. This one is a straight piece. You had to sew these together. Let me show you those. So I've sewn them all together, and we're just going to follow this outline of, you know, what quilting to do on them. So I'm going to get all my filler blocks, and we're going to do them just like we've done them all of them all along. So I'm going to do my filler blocks, and then I will get back with you when I have it all completed and sewn together. Remember, we've already done this one, and we've already done this one. So and this. And we did that at the beginning. So we're going to sew all of these together in order, the way they over on page what page is that? 64. It's going to give you the order in which to sew these all together after you have gotten them background quilted. But I'll come back with the final product when we get through with it. And then we will have only one section to go, plus our borders. And we're going to get this done before December 1st, so you can use it this year. And there's some other things I want us to do if we have time to do them. Alrighty, I will see you in just a bit with the final product. Okay, here's our completed block sewn together in the quilt. The strip on the left side is not connected to the strip on the right side. We got one more section 7 to go. A few embellishments to do, and then our borders and quilting it or tacking it together, and we will be finished. Isn't it great? Absolutely adorable. Next up will be section 7. Look for it.